This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get fly. I got 6
And we are still not tired on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. I'm your host, Vito Geronimo Chirk, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is the Doc from Doc and Jack, John Charles McElroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, you're the leader of the clones now? What happened?
I guess so. That was really cool, huh? 12 Wood had me on last week via his Periscope show, Wood Scopes, and it was terrifically fun. I got to insert some humor of mine and say some stupid stuff, and it was great. Like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, Eastern Standard Time, 11 o'clock here. It was terrific, man, and you know, I wish I was on a little bit longer. That's my only gripe, I guess, or beef with 12 Wood, but I loved it. He was gracious, allowing me on the airwaves, and you know, he didn't know what I was going to say, what I was going to spew in terms of BS from my mouth, but I don't think it wasn't full of BS what I said, and I had some fun with it ultimately, and that's all that counts in my opinion too, Doc.
Now I'll set the scene. Woodscopes is a show that's dedicated to the jungle, which is a radio show hosted by Jim Rome, a guy that's had a career over 3 decades. And Jim Rome is a guy that basically created his own sports radio lingo, has a really entertaining sports show. Now, either you really like the show or you really don't, but the fans of the show are rabid fans. He's got a big audience, and the fans of the Jim Rome radio show are called clones. And so 12 Wood found out that, you know what, there's a bunch of people that really like the Jim Rome show, and he did a show catered to the clones, the callers, the interesting stories that take place on the Jim Rome show. And finally, after a year of doing the Periscope show on Friday nights, he landed an interview with Jim Rome. And so that's a big get in an internet show, especially for a Periscope show. And so for a guy like 12 Wood to have you on was awesome. And I think it was short because of the fact that the majority of the clones don't know who you are. You're not...
Don't care an F about me, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they really don't care about Vito Chirco who he is, but...
The funny part was, as it was going on, if you go back and you watch it, and it's on our Twitter page, at
Sure.
Detroit Podcast, you can follow 12 Wood on Twitter, at 12 Wood. If you follow it, there were people cracking on you saying, who's this chick on the airwaves? And the best one...
Sexy chick, by the way.
The best one was the hashtag Detroitlet. And, you know... People cracking on Detroit, the toilet, and all that
Because
kind
of my
stuff.
toilet story, too, because I said that Coney Island or the pizza ran through my...
Yeah,
and
exactly.
ran through me really quick, and I had to take a dump. I did say that on the airwaves today.
Exactly. So it was very funny. The clones got in, and it's a good show. People are reacting live. Now, the funny part was I was so excited to see it live. I fell asleep Friday night, 10:15.
I can't believe you did, because I thought you'd be all over it, texting me, blowing up my phone, and then, Doc, where was he? I almost asked you,
Yeah.
Hey, how did it go? What did you think?
I was
and
out.
I was excited, because I knew I did well.
Yeah.
I felt good about it, and then
Very
I didn't even watch it
energetic.
live.
I didn't see it live, but
Man.
I saw it at 1:15
But you
a.m.
saw it after the fact, and
Yeah.
it was good. You were proud of me. I was excited to get your approval and whatnot, and some praise from you. I was thankful of that.
And I think that maybe, you know, it was really good, really energetic.
But
you told
here's
great stories.
Yes.
One of those things that can be talked about could be maybe, you know, you were really amped up, like really, really,
Oh, I
really
was
amped up.
rambling and rambling. I was
Yeah.
just excited. I wanted to showcase my excitement, and I guess
Yeah.
I really, really did.
Yeah, and then the one thing you could have did a little bit better was when they were cracking on the Twitter. You gave me credit, no doubt about it.
I gave you a ton.
A ton
And
of credit.
Adam, I hope Adam knows it too,
Yes.
or you at least relay the message to Adam.
Yes, exactly. But you know what? When the guy came in and was talking about how he grew and things like that, it could have been also said that, hey, he built a following based on some sarcastic tweets, some funny posts, and things like that. You just gave like an overview, and
Yes.
you could have been a little bit more specific.
In
like,
detail, yeah.
Yeah, like around the time we built it, we started tweeting from games and really sarcastic, and we were funny, and we read all the messages, and we get a lot of views a day. So you could have been a little bit more specific on how we grew it, but you gave a broad overview. So that's all I would say you could have did better. But it was a great appearance. I think it's fun. I think you would make a good radio guest, and I do think that if you ever sent your information to the executive producer of The Jungle, you're a clone. Like, people would crack on you. You would
The size, and I would I could take advantage of it, I know, too.
Yeah, you could build your brand and things like that. They'd be like, who's this short guy? And
Who's this MF?
The clones would eat you alive. But with your takes and your hot takes and the ability to crack back, I think that's what it's all about, too, is that you're going to take some, but you can give it back, and then you'll get respect, and you can be funny because you're quick-witted. You can go and have spew hot takes. So I think you make a great caller to the Jim Rome Show, but the problem is nobody can wait an hour and a half per call to try and call up.
I can't believe it's that long of a wait on the phone line for Jim Rome. And I love Jim Rome, huge show, I know, but really? That long of a wait? So you've tried it then, and you've never gotten on.
I've been on once.
You were on once.
I
Now,
went
back
probably way back when Bobby Higginson was there. Didn't I play the call?
Okay, so that was from Jim Rome when you were calling out Bobby Higginson. What did you say about Higgy again, too?
I called him a B.
There you go. You did.
So
you did.
I have the call.
We should play that on here even, right?
I should play it on here and figure out a way to transfer and things like that. I do have the phone call, so it's interesting. Maybe I'll try to figure out a way to send it to a different phone here, and we can play it maybe at the end of the podcast. But all in all, good appearance from you. Real good stuff there, and I'm really proud and happy. So the whole country got a text message from the president, and the conspiracy theories are really interesting because somebody with the last name McAfee came out and said, you guys are aware that if the president has access to this and can do this, that your security is at risk if he has access to be able to text you. And he's like, wake up, people. You should find a way to complain about this and opt out of it and things like that. So I was just sitting at the computer, and all of a sudden I was listening to the radio, editing a podcast, and all of a sudden the alert came, and I got the text message, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I moved on. But afterwards, people were making jokes. Obviously made a joke, having, spliced in that the president wants a fine young lady to come to the White House, and that got a lot of views and a lot of...
And she responded.
And she liked it.
Look at that. She liked it. She responded.
Because a follower tagged her. I didn't even tag her.
You didn't tag her.
No, a follower
You just
did.
put her name in there.
Yeah, and a follower said, look at these clowns, and he tagged her, and she said, ha-ha, and sent it out.
She took it well.
And she has a big following, and it got a good response, so that's a good thing. But a lot of people didn't like that, Vito, and a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, this is kind of one of those situations in which the man is watching you, and there was a lot of concern about it. What'd you make of it?
I don't want to get a text from the president, and from that president especially, but I guess it's, it's for the purpose of, disasters, right? Like emergencies, nationwide, national emergencies. If there's a big time, just dangerous situation arising, to warn us of those dangerous situations and to make us aware of them, and so we have time to prepare. And I get all that, but yeah, I don't want these people hacking into my account info, finding out all these details about me, finding my photos of me taking photos of myself in the shower or somewhere else in my bed, or just photos they don't need to see. And I don't want anybody else to see of me, Big V, or the Big V. Anyways, I don't really take those photos, but I know there's probably some people that are fearing the worst, right? They really are. Privacy issues now, right, have arisen, and people are up in arms thinking, well, what can they steal? Can they steal my credit card account info and my social security info and steal my identification? Can that happen and run rampant now? Who knows what can happen when there's these brilliant dudes that are hackers, because they are brilliant, by the way. These guys don't just go to community college. They go to Dartmouth and Ivy League schools like Harvard and Yale. They're not dummies. So if they have the capability of getting into your info, and even the government, what are they taking from you then and finding out about you? That is scary. And then I think what comes into play is the Big Brother issue, right? And nobody loves Big Brother. I don't know anybody that does. And you got to fear for the worst, I guess. Not that I'm going to, but you start thinking, right? The negative thoughts start circulating throughout your head.
See, I just look at it like, you know what? You do know that sometimes in post 9/11 that we're in a country that definitely has a fight against terrorism, and homeland security is super important. So for the president to be able to message people, look, there is a scenario in which, privacy is looked at and can be violated and things like that. But for the greater good, like if I knew that the information could be used maybe to track terrorists or to track some people, I'll sacrifice that. There are some people that are gung-ho. That are like, no, I don't want the government at all knowing my business, what I'm saying, what I'm doing, no access to my phone.
But guess what? They're going to find out through other means too, right? Don't you believe that?
Exactly. They're going to find out through other means, and I will sacrifice, for me personally, I will sacrifice a couple texts from the presidential White House if this, if it's warranted. I'd have no problem with it. Zero.
And maybe
nothing.
He sends a dick pic or something, Donald Trump, thinking it's going to a prostitute, right?
It's a nothing burger to me, really.
Yeah.
But
he might think the text is going to Stormy Daniels, or one of his porn star friends. But anyways.
But what do you make of those that aren't for it, like that say, you know what, this is another window for the government maybe to take advantage and maybe invade your privacy. Do you feel like
they'll take advantage? But guess what? They've taken advantage before. There's been breaches of security, right, with Facebook, our personal info on there. And guess what? Everybody has found out about us through that breach. And guess what? I know there's other breaches of info too. So our privacy, hey, none of us really have a full-fledged amount of privacy. I don't think any of us really can say we live completely private lives because of that. Even if we have a dumb phone. I call it a dumb phone, like a flip phone. Even those phones, guess what? There's probably still a way. There's a chip in that phone probably where the government can hack it and track us through that. So we're never totally safe from, I think, being tracked in our daily lives.
So do you think they'll utilize it even more? How do you see this going forward?
I think for terrorists, I think what you said, Homeland Security can access it, and I think this was put into place after 9/11. So it has good meaning. There's good reason for it. So I'm really not too up in arms about it. I'm not going to go complain all day long about it. But what I was saying earlier is what other people feel. And I think these other people have gone too far in complaining about receiving these text messages when guess what? This was put into place back in the mid-2000s, I think, and we haven't received one text until now. It's not like Donald Trump himself is going to personally be sending text messages left and right to us now.
Okay, Vito. So to tie this all together in this segment, I did find it. I used to call 97.1 when it was the All Talk station prior to them becoming sports, so way over a decade ago. So I got two clips here. Me pranking a woman host. Her name was Debbie Schlichel, and she was a super ultra conservative radio host. But her show was so easy to prank that sometimes late at night I'd just have some tea and call her up and prank her. And it was
some tea at night, you said
too?
Yeah,
I'd have some tea, and her show would just be like, super right wing and stuff like that. And I was just this young punk, and I'd call her show up and prank her. So there's a couple clips of me pranking her. I'll play those, and then I'll play it's a minute phone call I made to Jim Rome, and I'll set the scene afterwards. But it's about the Detroit tour stop, and this call was made shortly afterwards. So this call was made around July, August of 2003. 15 years old are these calls, and I found the tapes, and so I recorded it through the voice memos on my phone. So listen to the pranks, and look, don't judge me for them. I mean, I was a young kid.
Or judge him completely, but he was immature.
15 years ago, I was 24 years old. I was probably, two sheets to the wind calling up a radio station, but this is what I called, and this is what I, taped when I called 97.1.
Rick from Southgate, you're on Live 97.1.
Yes, I want to comment that I still can't believe we were talking about this issue because all I think we care about is when's the last time you got some anal.
Thank you, Rick. You have a lot of class there, and thank you very little for calling Live 97.1. Howie from Detroit, you're on Live 97.1.
Rick?
Wow. It's unfortunate you have callers like that, but I think it's because your show sucks.
And that was you again. Look at that, Doc.
Thank you so much for waiting online.
From 15 years back.
Yeah.
And you still can relive the memories and the glory of those phone calls that you left.
So what happened was I could call from a home and another phone. You call back-to-back lines.
So fooled.
I was Rick in Southfield, Howie in Detroit, and so, yeah, that was me calling up Debbie Schlichel. And,
have you gotten anal recently was your first question. The most important question for her.
Oh, man.
Crazy stuff, but you were 24, immature, and we can get away with some stuff when we're 24, right? And I'm 25, so can I still get away with stuff? Highly questionable.
Yeah, man. What do you think of that? Oh, man, I feel bad.
I feel bad for you. That has been laid out in the open now to expose you for who you really are and what you really stand for.
That's a 20-year-old version.
No, it's all in fun, and you know what? You maybe were two sheets of the wind.
Yeah.
I don't know what you drank those nights or what you were doing by your lonesome calling up that show, but you used to do that, right? You would try to prank radio shows back in the day for fun. It was fun to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll apologize to Debbie for being a clown.
Yeah, sure. I know you'll probably see her again. Or we'll have her on, and then you can apologize fully to her. There you go.
So to set the scene, Jim Rome came to the Palace of Auburn Hills for a tour stop where he would tour the country and give his takes and have great guests. One of the great lines was John L. Smith came and he spoke. Ernie Harwell was there.
Did he really?
Yeah,
that's huge.
It was huge. And John L. Smith spoke to the crowd. It was a Michigan crowd, so they were booing John L. Smith. So he grabs the microphone and goes, "Where's your coach at?" And Rome went crazy. He was so happy.
He loved it.
Oh, because the crowd went apeshit. It was awesome because he said, I'm here. Where's your coach at? And it was awesome. So I recapped some of the tailgating, and I lobbed a phone call. And part of it was I did write some of it down so I can deliver it. But here's my phone call, my one and only phone call to the jungle, the Jim Rome Show.
Not the right thing to do, so let's go to the phones. 1-800-686. John in Detroit. Hey, John, how are you?
Romy, thanks for the vine, man.
You got it.
I'm in Detroit, and I'm a Tigers fan, and I personally don't want the Tigers to break the 62 Mets record, because it's pretty likely no team is ever going to break it again, and the embarrassment it's going to bring to one of the charter members of the American League. But when I talk to my friends who are clones, all they keep reminding me is, if the Tigers break the record, Romy guaranteed us another tour stop. So despite being one of the worst collections of baseball talents ever assembled here in Detroit, it's pretty safe to say that Detroit is fully behind KC and Minnesota to spank our Tigers. Finally, Jim, to all the clones who doubt that Detroit was the mother of all tour stops, Darren McCarty, a recovering alcoholic, looked into the sea of 15,000 people tailgating at the Palace and started slamming beers, getting himself into rehab. War Detroit, War WDFN, Bobby Higginson's a bitch, I'm out.
Wow. I can't say that I concur with that take about Higgy.
But he knew who Higgy was, too.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't like a huge national brand. Never was. He was all right with the Tigers, but that was an epic call, man.
Good
You
call.
left him with that and it just hung up. I know you did that on purpose, too.
Yeah.
Dropping the mic, pretty
it.
much moment for you.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Did you get a hard one there? I mean, you probably were amped up and feeling
Yeah.
yourself after that.
I was a guy that loved the Rome show, so I called up, and it was hard, too, because prior to that, I was run, meaning that I couldn't even get through the screener because I was a little bit nervous and stuff like that. And
I was about to say, that had to be nerve-wracking for you.
Yeah, no,
you
because-
love Rome.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I love
You
Rome.
Looked up to the guy for years.
yeah, and if you don't get through, if your take sucks, the producer would always say, try again and hang up on you. So I mean,
Really?
Yeah.
They would just hang up on you.
Oh, yeah, you
They
can't.
would say your take sucks, too? I mean, how would they say it to you?
They'd
Flat
say,
out?
They'd say, no, it's not good enough. Bye-bye. Try again. And that was it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So how many times did you try
Maybe
that?
I was run 3 times. I think I tried prior to that phone call. So I said that I wanted to call about the tour stop, and then I had a strong take about Darren McCarty and da-da-da-da. And he's like, okay, no problem. He put me through. And so I waited, and I made the phone call. I lobbed it off. What'd you think of it, huh? You can
was
see
good.
how
It was
young my
epic.
voice was.
Yeah, I can tell you were younger.
That's a 15-year-old telephone call to a radio station. I kept it on a tape. You heard me at the end of that pushing the tape. I taped the calls too. So I used to call up sports radio. I used to call Parker and the Man a lot. I won contests. I won
Did
What's
you ever
Your Beef?
meet those guys, Rob Parker? And
Oh, yeah,
Who
yeah.
was the man, by the way? What's his name?
The Man, Parker, and the Man was Mark Wilson.
Mark Wilson.
And Mark
okay.
Wilson was one of our first guests here on the
Was
podcast
he?
when we did a 45-minute extended interview. He was the first extended interview we did over 20 minutes was Mark Wilson via Skype, and he was so gracious and things like that. So I lobbed off a call, but that was in my 20s, so don't judge me off of that nonsense. It was silly. It was just, me having a take about the Tigers, and that was the 2003 season. That was the end of the year, and that was the year where everyone thought that they were really awful, could break the record for the most losses. I think that was the year they lost, 119 games?
119, 43 and 119, the American
Rome-
League record for
Ro-
single season losses.
Rome said if they broke the Major League record, he'd come back.
Ah.
So that's what I said. I was rooting for the Tigers to lose. And so that's where I was back then. And so your appearance on the Woodscopes now, 25 years after my phone call. You believe that?
Look at that. And it lives on
Damn.
forever, pretty much.
Damn. Wait, when's
through
your
your
birthday?
tape?
Vito, when's your birthday?
June 9th. When did you call there?
June 9th of 2003? No, of
93, but 93,
Okay,
but-
so you would have been 10 years old when I made
Yeah,
that phone call.
about that. Does it make you feel old, by the way?
Wow.
A little bit? Now you feel old.
I was 24, so that's what happens.
Yeah, you were a youngster.
But-
Living the dream. Now,
But again, don't judge me now as a 40-year-old
well, now
off the
you're
calls I made when I was
mature.
24. Yeah.
Now, when did you stop getting nervous calling in? Because you called into
Oh,
shows for
yeah.
days and days, years
yeah.
and years. I mean, when did you? you
when
think,
I stopped caring? Oh, when I called Corolla, because I called up Corolla and I would call up Tom Likas and I called up a lot of people, Loveline and stuff like that. So I was a guy that liked to call up the radio stations. After a while, you don't care anymore because it's like, well, they'll either take you or they'll. It's just it goes up into the ether. Now I would be more nervous talking to a podcast because it's archived. See, when you talk on the radio, it doesn't make a difference
well,
because
it's one call. They're not keeping it forever,
They
right?
can-
Unless you
Rome, if
record it
your
or
call
whatever.
is epic, we'll replay it and you can become a legend.
But you
on the
got to
show.
be like epic.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard
So
to come by.
For me, it was just entertainment and being part of the show. And that's how much I love radio. You can see now, broadcasting 4 or 5 days a week, how much I loved it. But I was one of those kind of clone type callers who just talk shit on the radio. And that's what I wanted to do. And you know what? I blame Jim Rome for the toxic nature of my phone calls. And that's why I would prank Debbie. It was so funny.
Well, speaking of like toxic nature, how
Yeah.
about the Khabib-McGregor fight?
That was crazy.
And
Vito.
we can get into that after the break as
Yes.
well.
Yes, Vito, definitely. A wild scene. I want to talk to you about that as well because I did pirate that pay-per-view.
Nice. Well, hey, doesn't surprise me.
Exactly. Stay with us. You're listening to Two Bad Hombres.
And Doc, as you know, one of our fine sponsors at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is Top Cat Sales, located in both Royal Oak and Madison Heights, Michigan now. And for years and years, specifically since 1999, Top Cat Sales' fearless leader and CEO, John Wangler, the former Michigan Rose Bowl winning quarterback, has developed relationships and has built up Top Cat into becoming a premier destination for custom apparel with brands including Adidas. And to find out more about Top Cat and to outfit yourself, your club, your sports team, your small business or corporation Monday through Friday, give Top Cat a call at 248-246-1054. Also, remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Vito, I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Legacy Football Organization. They're the premier offseason development program in the state of Michigan and Midwest. The Legacy Football Program provides unique platforms for student athletes on and off the field through community service, social awareness, education, and football development. For more information about the Legacy Football Organization, go check out legacyfootballorg.com. That's legacyfootballorg.com. We couldn't do this podcast without the great sponsors, and I'm very thankful that we work with the Legacy Football Organization and Top Cat Sales.
And back here on Too Bad Hombres, last weekend, what a brawl that ensued from that McGregor and Khabib fight. I didn't know much about the fight going into it, but I did watch it because I was at a stag party. Remember that? I was trying to explain to you what a stag party is. I guess in your culture you don't get what a stag party is, but I did explain it to you. And we were watching the fight, Doc, and then this brawl just breaks out. And guess what? I was kind of falling asleep, and then I saw that. I got woken up by it. I was like, what the hell is going on, John?
Weren't you impressed by Derek Lewis and his my balls were hot comment?
That post-game interview or post-match interview, that was funny.
To clarify, he did say, because he was rocked. Derek Lewis was getting whooped, and he came back, and he struggled, and he fought back and got a knockout victory, I believe. And then all of a sudden, he just pulled his pants off, and Joe Rogan comes to him in the post-fight interview.
Look at those balls. No.
And he's like, why'd you pull your pants off? And he's like, my balls are hot. Isn't that in essence what he said?
In so many words, yes. And it was entertaining. But the thing is, like the UFC, so if they're looking for like corporate sponsors and real people to sponsor them, companies to sponsor them, you can't have that happening, though. Even on pay-per-view, which I know anything goes on pay-per-view. You know, I mean, that brawl happened then, too. And they did televise that, but they kind of cut away, remember, too. And nobody was broadcasting that portion after the fight.
Yeah, it was a situation in which Khabib and Conor were talking back and forth, and after the fight, what happened was Khabib choked out Conor McGregor, and he continues to be undefeated, and he's a solid fighter. Both of the fighters, Conor McGregor and Khabib, are in their 30s, both of them 30 years old, and everybody was excited for the fight. They're the two best UFC fighters, arguably, right now in that division, and so they fought, and Khabib choked him out. Well, prior to the fight, there was a lot of shit-talking, Vito, and a lot of fans, hardcore fans, are like, we don't want this. We don't want all this hype, this talk about family, religion, all this bullshit to hype the fight. And everybody said, look, after the fight, these fighters, embrace, and they show each other respect and things like that. And I've watched UFC now for almost a decade. I love the UFC. Ultimate Fighting is really fun. It's a fun night. You can hang out with your buddies and watch the fights. But what happened was the corner and the supporters of Conor were chirping, and Khabib wasn't taking no shit. He jumped over the cage, and it was a little bit dangerous in that there were fans around. Some people, some media members in town kind of maybe feel like this also was staged post-fight. But no, the part that makes it not staged is the fact that someone climbed over the cage that was a supporter of Khabib and took some free shots at Conor. Now, some would say, my wife said, look, when that guy jumped the cage into the octagon and punched Conor McGregor, it kind of looked like he didn't do enough damage. Like if Andrea would have walked in there, she would have dropped Conor because the guy had a free shot from behind, and it didn't seem like he did any real damage to Conor McGregor, but it was dangerous. It was a dangerous scene. Everybody was freaking out. It took away from a massive fight. There are going to be probably real consequences. Khabib could lose his title because of this nonsense.
Well, should he?
I think he should. And it should be a situation in which you have to have some decorum. And even if it is something where it's hype for maybe the rematch or anything, you don't do it that way. Just do it the way in which everybody has preceded you. Go out there, talk trash, talk about his family, talk about the fact that you choked him out. You have enough to draw fights, and I just don't think that this is the way to continue to elevate fights, because it's going to get dangerous, Vito. If this nonsense doesn't stop, you could have somebody get killed in the ring. You could have somebody, really come stupid and bring a weapon. And what if there was a fan that was near Khabib jumping out and he just clocks Khabib. You're out there, he could say self-defense. You got one of your fighters, running into the stands. And so you got to be careful, because whenever you're a corporate entity and you're dealing with fans, there are going to be people that are going to be looking to sue, and you can't have that. Look, the Ultimate Fighting Championship at the end of the day is a respect sport, and you can't have the fighters having this melee after the fight. And that's just, all the melees should happen in the press conferences, in the meet and greets, and all the stuff that precedes a fight. All that can happen. It's fine. It's all part of it. But, when you have Conor McGregor attacking Khabib's bus and hurting his crew and stuff like that, he took it personally. And Khabib handled his business in the octagon where it should. But he tainted the fight by going out there and acting a fool. It was
no
crazy.
class.
No class.
And you won the fight.
Exactly.
But you know what? Don't bring religion into the mix.
Yeah.
And by Conor McGregor doing that, well, it obviously perturbed Khabib, and he was flipped off from it, right? And became, I guess you could say, unhinged, and he thought he had to take matters into his own hands after the fight and do what he did, starting that brawl with the rest of his team. It wasn't right, though. There's no rhyme or reason for it. There's no place for it, even in the UFC, where I know it's about really blooding your opponent and making him feel the pain and suffering of your wrath. But Khabib, you already had won the fight, dude. And then taking it out after the fight in the form of a brawl, man, it makes you look classless. So even if you're defending your religion and who you are and what your family is all about and stands for, guess what? He still acted the fool in the end, and he's the biggest culprit in all of this. And maybe he loses his title from it. Now, I don't think that'll happen, because I think Dana White allows all of this to permeate and to continue. And it's on him. He's the big boss. He could really come down hard. I don't think he will, though, because I think he allows this and likes it because it brings more entertainment value and eyeballs to the UFC. As much of a disgrace as it may be, and as people have opined in columns and in takes like this, Doc, I think he likes the attention it's brought to his sport. Because guess what? You and I right now, would we be discussing the UFC? No. If this brawl didn't ensue, now you might have brought it up. You like watching. You've been watching for over a decade, since its origination. But guess what? For me, I'm not a UFC fan. I don't get off on it. I'm not going to just bring it up on an episode of Two Bad Hombres. So for me, this is why I'm bringing it up, and I think Dana White knows that as well and is using it to his advantage.
Yeah, the situation in which it has to be corrected, because it's a corporate entity. You have to ensure the safety of the fans and the fighters, and it can't happen again. It should not happen again. Now, you have a situation in which you're going to talk about the stag party you went to, and you're going to talk about some cutaways and how sports television is produced. But I do want to talk about the stag party. And in previous podcasts, I've asked Adam, I do feel a little bit guilty that I illegally stream the UFC, but you can find it by just typing in UFC Stream Free. You can find it on your computer pretty easily. And so for the last year, I either go to the bar or I stream it illegally on my phone. Is that a major violation? Am I partaking in illegal activities by not paying for the UFC via pay-per-view? I mean, all I do is type in UFC free stream, and there's like 24 of them. And I know there's been crackdowns, but I take advantage of it. But I enjoy it when I do it. But afterwards I go, well, you're taking something for free. You're not contributing to the UFC and things like that.
But you didn't really feel that bad about doing it. Come on, man.
Not too bad. No, not really.
No, not really. You slept that night. You enjoyed the fight and slept that night. And you're happy you saw the fight, even illegally.
Yeah.
You were pirating. You
no
were, but it's fair because everybody else does it. Now, that's a bad logic to have, but a lot of other people do that too.
How much the fight was at your cruise party? It's probably $60.
I don't know.
They didn't ask you to chip in?
I wouldn't pay for it. No, nobody chipped in that I know of. I didn't chip in, at least. I only had $20 to pay at the front.
Okay.
So it was a fundraiser. You know how these bachelor parties are, stag parties are.
Sure.
They're really means to raise money for the groom.
Okay.
So I donated $20, and that's all I put into the pot. I wasn't gambling. I had no other cash or means to gamble and, donate money, or I would have. I'm a donating kind of guy. Hey, I do my charity softball game, as we've talked about, and you've been
Was
in
it fun?
So you know I'm a good guy.
Was it fun?
And it was fun. It was worth a few good laughs. Had some alcohol. The beer was flowing on tap. Had a massive headache the next day, I think, because of the beer on tap. At least my dad explained to me that sometimes when you drink that kind of beer, it leads to that even more. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a take on that, but
No, so you had a good time at the stag party.
I did.
And look, you just say, look, Doc, you make the choice, you own it, and just keep it moving.
Keep it moving, man.
Okay.
Keep it trucking along.
So I was scrolling through Twitter as we were talking, and I can't wait to hear about your take on television production to end the podcast. But everybody was wowed on Monday Night Football, Vito. Everybody was shocked and just at the level of performance of Drew Brees. And now that he's the all-time passing leader in the NFL, everybody's ranting and raving about this guy, the fact that he's a strong leader, the fact that, wow, the 60-yard touchdown pass that he had to break the record was awesome. The Pro Football Hall of Fame took the football. The New Orleans Saints just destroyed the Redskins. I had a good time watching it. I was like, wow, an offensive barrage. But I was just scrolling through Twitter on the Rich Eisen show, and I want to play this clip. It kind of, there's somebody that has a tie here in Detroit that says back in 2006 he would have never been Drew Brees' teammate. Let's hear from Reggie Bush. I'm a little bit intrigued.
What's your first memory of meeting Drew Brees, Reggie?
My first memory of meeting Drew was actually, I didn't meet him. It was a phone call. And it was the night before the draft, sitting in my hotel room. We just found out that Mario Williams was going to be the first pick taken overall. We had been told by Casserly and by the rest of the Houston Texans that I was the sure-in pick. So when we found out that Houston would be taking Mario Williams the night before, my agents and I knew that the Saints had the second pick and the Jets had the third pick. We wanted to go to New York. So we even had a conversation with Coach Sean Payton where my agent said to trade the pick. We were talking about trading the pick. And also because there was a lot of uncertainty after Katrina. The team obviously hadn't been that good in a long time. So I get a call from Coach Payton, and he basically tells Orny, who you know.
Yes.
Who tells Orny to basically go screw yourself. We're taking Reggie no matter what you guys want, what you guys say. And then Drew called me. And he says he had a chance to play with LaDainian Tomlinson, who he considered to be one of the best running backs he's ever played with. And he said that he was very excited to get a chance to play with me and was looking forward to it, and he thought that I had a chance to be as good or better.
So I get it now. It wasn't that he was after the fact. It was at the time back in 2006. Reggie Bush didn't want to play for the Saints.
Yeah, before the Saints drafted him.
Yes.
That's what that was all about, because remember, there was all that pub about him being selected number one by the Houston Texans. They didn't take him, remember.
Gotcha.
They took, Mario Williams instead, the D-end, who was a good pass rusher in his day, and it worked out for the Texans, kinda. They weren't relevant for a while, but hey, Bush going to the Saints worked out for him because he won a Super Bowl.
But sometimes it happens, Vito. Yeah, these players sometimes see the situation, like you said, regarding Katrina. It was good to hear him talking about Drew Brees. But yeah, like I said, everyone talks great about Drew Brees. He's such a leader. And a lot of people are giving Drew Brees a lot of credit for being a trailblazer. And that's why a guy like Baker Mayfield is drafted number one, because you know what? An undersized quarterback can work hard and throw the football. Over 70,000 yards passing, Vito. You believe that? It's kind of a situation in which, wow, you start to feel old, because we would watch him play Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan State, the rivalry, Purdue, Michigan, and stuff like that. And you go, wow, this guy's had an extensive NFL careers, won the Super Bowl, is doing great things in the community, and now he's the all-time NFL passing yards leader. Wow.
And I bet you never thought he would be that good when he was playing at Purdue. Nobody thought he would break NFL records.
No,
right?
Not at all. All right, Vito, what got under your ire? Speak to us from the pulpit like you're known to do on Tigers Talk.
So let me tell you, give you some context first. ABC and CBS were televising college football action Saturday afternoon, and just around the same time, Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to be the next Supreme Court justice. So these networks had the decision to make regarding whether or not they wanted a cut to the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh appointed as the next.
What was taking place?
College football was.
What game, do you know?
It was Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
Michigan and, who was it? Michigan.
Maryland.
And Maryland on Saturday at the Big House. Michigan was, creaming Maryland.
So it
wasn't a big deal to cut from it. So ABC eventually cut from it. And ABC News, one of the anchors came on, gave the report, the breaking news that, hey, Brett Kavanaugh had been officially appointed to be the next Supreme Court justice. So, fair or foul. From ABC, CBS did the same thing. I don't know what game they were televising at the time, but CBS also cut from the action. And NBC, I believe, had rugby on at that time. They cut from rugby. So ABC, CBS, and NBC all cut
totally away from the show.
Cut away from their televised events to televise the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh being the next U.S. Supreme Court justice.
Here's how I look at it. The way in which I see television now, there's such an amazing opportunity to just use the scroll. You can use the scroll, or guess what, Vito? Has anybody ever heard of picture-in-picture? I mean, I watch wrestling events where they still show the wrestlers wrestling on the top right of the screen, and then the bottom left is a commercial. You can run both things at the same time, especially when there's a sporting event going on. So for me, I would have showed it, but I would have not cut away from the sporting event. You can run a scroll, you can do a split screen, you can do a lot of things nowadays with television, and it's one of those situations where I know it wasn't big-time news and stuff like that, but when you're dedicated for sports, there needs to be a little bit of a time away because it was covered so much. I mean, you can just scroll it on the screen and say, look, in this next commercial break, we'll go to a quick 3-minute update. Hey, just like you have the NFL, score update where you take away from the game and you start seeing all the touchdowns. Say, hey, look, we got some news. We'll take the next couple minutes and we'll give you a quick update on what's going on. Brett Kavanaugh has been confirmed. This is what it means. He'll start on Tuesday, and he won the vote 50-48. And this now means that Donald Trump's confirmation, his appointment of Brett Kavanaugh, has been successful. The attempts that were made have not resulted in him being denied an opportunity to be on the Supreme Court. Thank you. Bye-bye. Back to the sporting event.
Well, by the way, let me just confirm this. They did cut back to the game.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's not like the game was then totally thrown off the air. And remember, it was Michigan-Maryland. It was a blowout.
Right.
So in defense of ABC, I mean, who really cared about the game unless you were a Michigan fan? Nobody from Maryland was watching, or anybody else
any
from the
points
nation.
missing, anything?
I think they missed something. I think they did. And then they showed somebody scoring. So they missed a portion of a drive where Michigan scored. But still, who really cared? Even Michigan fans, okay? Now, you would care if you don't want to see Brett Kavanaugh being confirmed or you don't really care about that news. And then I start thinking to myself, if you really cared about the news, guess what? You could scroll on Twitter and find out there as well, because breaking news is so widely accessible now on Twitter. Or guess what? You go to CNN or Fox News, because guess what they were covering?
24 hours.
They were covering that.
Exactly. So it's not one of those situations which I paid attention heavily to it. Obviously, he was confirmed, and I do think that going forward, a lot more people are going to go out and vote, and that's good. Everyone should rally. But again, like you and
There's been a spike, too, I believe, in voter registration, which is great for the nation.
I think that civil discourse needs to continue to be had, and we got to work towards partisan, or what is it called? We need to work toward bipartisan.
Coming together,
work it together,
across party lines to work together in unison.
Like Vito and Doc work.
Yeah, look at this.
To earn sponsors and have fun and make fun of each other and work for the common goal of growing the network. So that's kind of how it rolls. And I hope it happens, but we'll see how this progresses now in the coming months, in the coming rulings, as to how this is going to progress with Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. So before we get out of here, a couple quick predictions. I want to get your sense of it. Night game, Michigan, Wisconsin tonight when this podcast drops. Big game, 7:30. You and I will both be at the big house handling our business, taking in a contest at night. My first time at night, late night action. So obviously, you're going to be seeing some coffee next to my station.
Oh, yeah. Will you be able to stay up all that time, Doc?
I'm happy you're there because you'll wake my ass up if I fall asleep.
I will for you.
Michigan win?
Yes.
And Michigan State likely going on the road versus Penn State. Are they going to get whooped by 7 or more?
I'm going to say, by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that a blowout? Do you consider that a blowout when it's 2 touchdowns? Or does it have to be more than 2 touchdowns?
It's not competitive. Blowout maybe is 15 points or more.
Yeah.
But I do think that Michigan State right now is spiraling, and I can't wait for next week when we do a lot of podcasts with Michigan and Michigan State supporters. It'll be a great time. But right now, as a Spartan supporter, my confidence is low, especially with Mark D'Antonio coming out and saying, look, I want to run the ball 40 times a game, and I'm not making a bunch of changes. We're not going to do this grand midseason shift regarding our offense. So, awful loss to Northwestern. A lot of the fans are unhappy. Everyone that came back for homecoming got to see that awful, awful performance. And right now, the stock for Michigan State is really low. A lot of people are selling. A lot of people are not happy that support Michigan State.
Does MSU need an overhaul offensively?
They need to overhaul the staff. Yes, they do. And it doesn't seem like, based on what Mark D'Antonio has been saying in the press conferences this week, that it's going to happen. He's just going to roll with it. He's going to say, we got to execute better. But Dave Warner is inefficient. He's not the guy that needs to lead that offense. And I posed the question, and right now it's about 60-40 yes. I asked, and I'll ask you, does Michigan State win another Big Ten title under Mark D'Antonio? Yes or no?
I'm going to say no.
Oh, that's what 60-40, 40%
I mean,
said no.
I could see them winning. Yeah, it's not that outlandish. Now, what does Dave Warner have on Mark D'Antonio?
Yeah,
Because
right.
D'Antonio keeps, this guy on his staff years and years after it seems like he should have already been gone, right? Like year after year he's kept. Why?
Right.
What does Dave Warner have on D'Antonio? Maybe he's holding above D'Antonio's head.
Something for us to figure out, but I can't wait to cover this week's action. Can't wait to record next week. I think we might have some dignitaries in the house we can talk about and recap the week that was in college football, and we'll preview next week. Stay tuned to Two Bad Hombres. We're going to preview Michigan State, October 20th. It'll be a good contest. Nationally, it's not respected because they put it at noon, but I think it's good that we can kind of get it out of the way. If Michigan State does, in fact, lose that contest, we can just get it out of the way right away.
Should be fun.
Yeah,
and I'm vlogging for that game, by the way, for the Free Press, too. So
nice.
I kind of like that it's at noon. Do you like it really quick? Do you like that it's at noon?
Yes.
Yeah, earlier in the day, get it over with almost. Even though it should be fun, intriguing matchup. and we'll see what happens, and we'll talk about it much more in depth coming up this week, Doc.
You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast, the most interactive Detroit sports Twitter page. We read everything. We retweet the best comments. And if anything we've said at all has been offensive, my voicemails, anything at all that you take offense to, feel free to leave a voicemail 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Get your voice heard worldwide, and it's uncensored. You can say whatever you want, however you want. Check it out at 248-579-8686. You've listened to Two Bad Hombres.
Do I really sound like a chick? Let me know that, too. Adios.